idea and make you try it. But it's Bouhadana.
Bouhadana. Where's that from, dude?
It's Moroccan. Actually, right when my wife and I got married, funny story, we joined our bank accounts and she got a bank card in the mail and it was spelled completely wrong.
Really just butchered it?
Yeah. So it's a tough name to spell.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have been working on a lot of different music lately with different people.
Yeah.
And most of which are in the room.
That's right, yeah. They're watching me right now.
Yeah. So Bella actually is someone that we had on the podcast a while back. We're scrapping that episode because a lot has changed since then. Yeah. It was at a time when you guys had a song that you were working on that she was going to release, and then COVID happened and lockdown happened. Things changed.
Yeah.
So was your first song working together, or have you guys had a relationship for a while?
No, about a little over a year ago, we created a full, I think it was about 13 songs. And then eventually the songs got to her manager and we put together and formulated a plan to start releasing. Right. But we figured, you know what? We've already kind of come a little bit of a way and we know each other a little better. So every single song that we decided we wanted to release and adhere to the schedule to, we actually went back and redid them. And we would come out here to Los Angeles and do the vocals properly. So to answer your question, we had about 13 songs, and when they get released, we are in the midst of, and for future are gonna go back and redo some of them. And
so what do you mean by redo? Like, what do you are you redoing lyrics? Are you redoing the production?
What is re-recording them?
Oh, okay. So
just making them beefier.
Gotcha. Okay, so a lot of the fine stuff that a lot of people might not recognize right off bat.
Yeah, I'm a big audio nerd, so I will try to not get too technical.
Please do. That would be awesome. I'm sure there's a lot of other audio nerds out there that could get into your language.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Right. So we talked yesterday a little bit about this. You wouldn't call I'll call it a superpower.
Okay.
of perfect pitch, or close to perfect pitch, and you said that it's been something that's kind of like been there your whole life, basically. It was just something you learned to recognize throughout life.
Yeah, gradually since I was younger. I think when I started teaching myself piano, because I was primarily a guitar player, and I started teaching myself piano, and just over time I was able to recognize notes and certain chords. But yeah, it eventually developed into perfect pitch, and it's more of a party trick now because it's becoming more common in musicians.
Really?
So
you think more people are just recognizing that they have it?
I've met more people lately that have either relative pitches when you can kind of name the note and what vicinity it's in on a piano or any other strung instrument. But perfect pitch, I've met a couple people that can actually like if I could play like a seventh chord and they can name it, like what that chord is without looking.
That's bizarre.
Yeah, it's becoming very common, I think. I never set out to ear train.
Right.
It just somehow just developed.
Is it really that useful in studio settings, or like you kind of have all of the tools in front of you anyways? Is it really useful in a studio? Like you said, it's more of a party trick now.
Well, to others, when I'm sitting in front of the board and working on something, it does come into play a little bit, especially with designing and formulating melody and figuring out the right chords that go underneath it. I guess it just expedites the process.
Gotcha.
I don't have to think too much about what note is this? How is this note gonna complement this chord? I kind of understand it a little more.
Okay.
I use it. I think I subconsciously use it without knowing I use it, but it's definitely something that I think plays a prominent role in our process of creating.
And then you, like you said, you used to play live instruments, so guitar, piano, stuff like that mostly. When did you get into production, like making music with a computer and doing production that way rather than just playing live?
So around when I was about 15, I was in a band, and obviously 15-year-olds don't have money to go record.
Right.
So I was fortunate enough to have my parents just, you know what, we'll get you the equipment and you're going to learn it. They instilled that work.
It was like, it's like, if we're spending this money on you, you're going to use it.
Yeah, exactly. And it was, at first I was like, no, I want to go to a big fancy studio, but I'm very lucky they did, because obviously it's turned into, at least right now, it's becoming a bit of a full-time career.
Yeah.
Yeah, just I did it. I started at 15 more out of necessity, and
Okay.
I didn't play sports in high school, and just YouTube tutorials were my go-to, and just over time just practiced it. And
Straight from
better.
school back home to the computer.
Oh, yeah.
Like every time. Yep.
yeah, when I was in school and I got grounded, it wasn't phone taken away and you go see friends. It's like, hey, we're gonna take the studio away from you.
Oh man.
Is that-
and then
yeah,
you
that
have to
was my
sit in the
whole life.
kitchen with a book and like pretend like you're having fun.
Yeah,
Yeah. So music's just been something of a escape for you, and now it's finally something that you're able to make into a job, like a career, something
Yeah.
that you can actually pursue.
so far so good. Yeah.
What are you trying to do? What is your end goal, I guess? What do you have in mind for the next couple of years moving forward with music?
Just continuing to hone in my craft.
But more back-end stuff? So
Yeah.
more back-end production?
Yeah, I personally do believe that, especially in modern production. We were actually having a small conversation about this yesterday.
Right.
Everybody has access to creating. As far as video or audio recording,
Right.
with just a laptop. We're all kind of on an even playing field now. Now it's what can you do create with your creativity, and how can you find certain sounds? How can you kind of brand yourself as a producer, to where kind of like an artist. I know like if Lord or Halsey or very unique singers will sing something, immediately the listener will know that is them singing.
That's
I think
right,
it's
yep.
the same thing with production in a certain way.
Right.
So just kind of coming into the role of a producer and understanding what my niche is a little better.
Right.
Of course, networking and finding the right artists that work with that can complement my work as well. Of course, I can complement theirs.
Mm-hmm.
And then just overall, the end goal is really just to make a fun, happy, and sustainable career
Out of being a producer.
And creativity. Yeah.
That's awesome. I was talking to my girlfriend, I've likened you and Bella working together to, what's her name? Billie Eilish and her brother.
Oh yeah.
And I think about that a lot now because I'm like, there are a lot of singer-producer duos where they just work really well together. They don't feel like they have the need to work outside of their, their group necessarily.
For sure.
And it just works really well. Brings me to think about stuff like DJ duos or like rap groups and stuff like that. It's just a very similar dynamic, I guess, you guys have. But I don't think anyone really recognized that was a thing until Billie Eilish hit the scene and was like bringing her brother out and like had him on stage for when she was taking awards and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So now people are really bringing producers into the eye, and like the producers getting a lot more credibility nowadays.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
Back in the day, especially with hip hop stuff like that, you know what I mean? The producer never really got much light. Wasn't something they put a lot of light on.
Yeah, no, it's the whole the image and the persona and even the personality of producers are coming out now. I'm really thankful that Billie Eilish and her brother came out at the right time, because I use the example because when people come into the studio, they expect this giant board. I've had a parent of a artist I worked with ask where the tape machines are, but I even showed Bella the video of like Billie Eilish's brother like pulling a microphone over to her while she's sitting on a bed and just a computer,
and she just belts right there.
Yeah, and obviously that strategy still works, and I think it's been kind of a modern way of recording for at least like 2 years now. Especially more on the West Coast.
So people just, it's not that they don't care about having good quality equipment. It's more so that they're like, you're going to make do with what you have so you can make the best music possible.
Yeah.
Do you think there's really that much of a quality difference when it comes to equipment? Like as far as your end product, what the consumer is getting?
Oh, this could be a long conversation if we're talking about gear. I would say for the most part, no, because it's the producer's ear that's going to make it better.
Okay.
Obviously, having the essentials are very helpful, but I don't really believe that there is a purpose to, for example, go out and buy like a $19,000 Neumann microphone when you could have like a Shure SMB and just use the right tools.
Right.
Producers are using the right tools to make the voice sit well in the song.
So there is like a base level of quality that you should have in your equipment.
Very minimal. Yeah.
Especially so that, like we were saying, especially in today's world, gear is accessible as hell to people in general.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a base level of quality, but anything past that base level is just incrementally better than the next. Or is it
To a degree.
Okay.
Definitely to a degree. It really depends on how unique the engineer is too, because some people might be traditionalists or are wanting to be traditionalists and wanting to bring in more outboard gear and outboard compressors, and that's just how they work.
Right.
I just was a kid on a computer for the longest time, and that's the world I know best. So I would say for my realm of modern recording, I believe all you really do need is a computer, Logic or Pro Tools, whatever software, a MIDI controller, and just a simple flat frequency microphone. And then you just go off. Software nowadays has such an incredible, they have incredible MIDI platforms, and you can emulate any live sound.
Yeah, I was looking into a couple pieces for the podcast that had different like compression and EQ and stuff right in-house, so you could do it straight from the microphone into your recorder rather than needing to do any post-processing, which was like really interesting. So, like, that would save me so much time.
As far as gear, I could tell you I've seen very successful producers, one just recently, who just simply used just a live stage microphone for vocals and just vocal reference, put it into the system, and just knew how to use the digital tools to make it great. That would sound just as great as a very, very expensive microphone.
It's like a couple of years back, people would have said that was cheating.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
A couple of years back, people would have been like, you're cheating your way to making a good song.
It's so funny you say that, because when I was about 14 and I had recorded for the first time, this was right around when Logic 9 came out, and Logic 8 or 9 became really popular. And I was so excited to tell my friends, those drums are drum samples. Like, so your drummer's not really playing that. No, he played it, but they replaced it with drum samples. And the distaste for that, I get it, was at the time was like, ooh, they're not actually playing. Where's the integrity?
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's about the sound and the character of the song. It doesn't matter how you do it.
Yeah, you care more about the end product than you do about the process of getting there.
100%. If I had to go on top of a mountain and mic a drum set with real reverb just to make it sound how myself and the artist and their team want it, then yeah, we'll do it. But
you can replicate that in a computer and make it work.
Yeah, I think it's
That's
just
fair.
I think back then there was a stigma of just samples or fake keyboards that sound like the real thing and very human. I think people just saw like that as a lack of integrity,
right?
Which is not.
It's also crazy. Like, music's had to adapt to technology in crazy ways in the last 30 years. Because prior to, you know what I mean, it was like microphones and speakers were as complicated as it got.
Yeah.
And then the computer came around and production software came around, and it completely just messed everything up. So I bet you the rock stars were the ones who were just pissed off and saying, like, you know what I mean? There's no integrity in this. None of you are actually playing your instruments.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
so makes sense.
There are some tape manufacturers, because back in obviously the 60s or 50s or something, they did it to tape. And unlike today's world, they had to get their take done in 3 takes or less. They're not going to keep buying up tape. And
right.
So that evolved into the computer. Yeah. And now it's cool to be at a time where, after all of that, a series of events leading up to today's recording world, it's evolved to where you almost need just a laptop.
Yeah.
And I think, I predict in about, 10 years being generous, maybe even sooner, we're going to be able to record something in the palm of our hands that is just of high bandwidth quality.
Yeah, I mean, right now all they have
Super
is the beat makers on your iPhone.
Oh yeah,
I mess around with those, but like you can't. I don't think you can make something like full out of that.
Yeah, I took I rented a Lin drum set from Lin drum machine, which is an analog drum machine.
Okay.
From Guitar Center, and I brought it home and took all the samples off of it. and then send it back.
I was gonna
Like,
say that's another.
I
That's
didn't
another.
steal them. I just played it, recorded it, and put it in the library. But I was like, oh, I'm missing one with like really good low end. So I actually got an app, just hit it, and then put it into the library. And it was incredible, and I still use that little sample for like layers sometimes.
Even the software, like if you really tried to, if you worked hard enough, you can find production software for free. Easily. That's what I'm saying. It's like it's so accessible that you can find it for free if you want to.
Oh, definitely. I definitely have had my fair share of looking for plugins and samples for free, and there are some incredible ones out there.
Okay.
But they're always out there. Reddit is a very good thread to find like free samples or VSTs.
And like you're saying, you can take the free samples that you're finding and make them 10 times better if you know what you're 100%. Doing with the software. If you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So
that's how I view it with samples is what has the most potential, because I'm gonna alter it anyway because it's gonna depend on the song.
Right. Yeah. So do you do sound like do you make your own sounds as well from scratch?
Yeah.
And that's just the same process. It's just taking samples and then adjusting them.
Yeah, definitely. I mainly do it with digital soft synths. So where it's like you basically formulate pad sounds through like cutoffs and resolution and very, very technical stuff, but it's just taking frequencies and turning them into a sound. So like I just got okay at this recently, but it's just taking like a buzz of like a bzzz, and then EQing it, compressing it, putting in certain flavors to make it, instead of like bzzz, it's more like and it's like soothing. Very, very technical. It's like a science behind it. I just watch a lot of tutorials on it. But yeah, I'm sure if anybody watching who knows about soft synths, they are very, very difficult. But I'm getting there.
It's a process. It's your next journey in music, like learning what to do.
Yeah, creating sounds from nothing to something that is entirely just my ear taste.
Right.
Which I think is very important.
And you haven't had much experience working in the world of EDM specifically.
Not quite. No, not so recently.
Right. So that started when you started working with Bella, or were you getting interested in it prior to?
I've always been a fan of EDM music, but that wasn't my scene until quite recently. When Bella and I worked on a song with Tidy, it definitely opened my eyes. But it also opened my eyes too to how I can bring some of because I'm generally a guitar player, so I bring in like a lot of like that indie pop music. We got EDM, we got an EDM flavor going, and then I was able to kind of like bring in my taste to it. But immediately I was able to explore a lot more EDM artists that her team has shown me.
Right.
And so it was very, very recent.
Right. And then you have a project that you co-produced with Tidy as well. Is that the same project you were just talking about? Okay.
Yeah.
So what was that process like? The studio process.
Yeah.
Because I know you guys like to like sit in the living room and set up your stuff and just like go at it.
Yeah.
So how does that come about? Was that just natural for you guys to feel like that was how you wanted to make music?
Yeah.
Well, or did one of you suggest like, hey, I think this is a good spot? Like, let's set up right here.
I think it was, we just set up wherever had the most space where we were going to be comfortable.
Right.
And an interesting thing we did is we wanted the most space as possible, and we wanted a floor with nothing on it, because we wanted to sit down on the floor and just talk about it. And then, we went back to our computers and started sending ideas back and forth. And so Tidy and myself have done, we've done a few things already that are up and coming much later this year or early next year. But we learned how we work best together, and it's really just, I'm in my living room, he's in his living room, and we're on FaceTime, and we're just going back and forth. Because immediately...
Interesting.
Yeah, him and I are so all over the place. We're like madmen. We always want to touch and tinker with production. Right. To where it's very productive, because it's like, hey, I have this idea, I'm going to send it to you. And then you're not on FaceTime anymore. There are no distractions. Now you have to focus on what's at hand versus like tons of people in the room at the time.
It's weird that they don't have like a Google Docs program for music production. Because like when you're on a Google Doc, you can edit someone else's document at the same time that they're working on it.
Yeah.
So you're like, that would be super awesome instead of having to send files back and forth.
Yeah, where you can
I'm surprised
look
it's
at
not
their
a thing.
screen and mess with their. I think there's something like that now. I haven't looked into it.
Have you ever seen anything like that?
There's like something you can share with Google.
I've
It's
never.
like a screen share thing.
I'm surprised it's not like an Ableton thing or like an FL thing where you can just like hop in on someone else's project and like work on the same thing together.
I think I vaguely heard about one of my friends talking about that.
Like maybe it's a new thing they're trying to make happen.
Yeah, we'll have to look it up.
It's a
after.
tech company idea. If you come up with it, I want shares.
Well, Logic is really great. We both use Logic to where you can just share the project and then the project just populates on your computer, save it, send it back, and.
But you guys have to still work in sessions like that, though.
Yeah.
Like you have to make your edits and then send it back, and he makes his edits rather than like trying to do it in real time.
Well, we live kind of far from each other. Anyway,
Yeah.
So.
I just think it would be awesome if there, like, even if you could add a video camera or something to it. You know what I mean? Like, it's integrated all into the same system. Someone's taken, you know what I mean?
If that's not invented, I think you have an
Seriously,
idea.
maybe we should bleep this part of the video out so no one can steal the ideas.
We're gonna look it up right after and patent it.
Yeah,
it'll be
quite
too
honestly.
late. Yeah.
Well, someone's probably already patented it and they're just working on it and get ready to drop it at some point in time. Google's doing it.
We'll inquire.
Watch. Okay, so now that you've kind of found a new place in music to explore, right? Like it's a new genre for you.
Yeah.
What are you bringing in from the other styles of music that you've been interested throughout life? What have you noticed that's like been natural for you to bring over?
Oh, generally melody from. I'm really big on pianos and clean sounding guitar. So those are kind of my launching pads when I start with a song. But more recently, there was a track with Tiny that it hasn't come out yet. But all he did was he sent me chords, and I just gave him like really fat drums. And like almost like an indie pop with like a really big push that still will, a kick drum will still hold up in the EDM world, but it's much more layered with more raw instruments, I suppose.
Okay,
that's
raw
kind of
as in
like real bass, real guitar.
Oh, okay.
Some guitar emulators, like digital guitars. But that's kind of as far as I've been. I've only about 3 or 4 songs into the EDM world, but so far that's kind of been how I've been embellishing these tracks.
And you started, so like you said, with the raw instruments and stuff like that, and then I know we talked yesterday, and you got into like the pop punk world and stuff like that for a little bit, and then you kind of settled in that area where it was like instrument and vocals combined. Yeah, that was where you were happy.
Yeah, well, I mean. When I was like this big, I was listening to like hardcore punk and AFI, and I wanted to play guitar really bad. Right. And over time, I got into electronic music, not quite EDM, but electronic music around like 16, 17. Right. So I kind of dropped the guitar for a little bit, and then guitar for Top 40 Radio was kind of coming back, so I picked it back up just to kind of add in, and guitar and real instruments are just something that I never want to get away from. Right. Of course, unless it doesn't really complement the song or it's not useful, then I'll scrap it. But I still try to, hey, let's try some.
It's like what you grew up with. Like you don't want to let go of it.
Yeah, right. I try to not leave it.
My sister played violin in like high school. I think she's 30 now. Yeah. And she says it's like riding a bicycle, but I have not seen her touch her violin in like, I don't know, 10 years. Oh, yeah. So I'm questioning whether or not it's really that easy to just pick back up or not.
I don't know. I mean, with the analogy I give to vocalists that come in, it is really like going to the gym and working out. When you stop, you are going to be rusty, and you're going to have a little bit of a setback. So perhaps I am not good at violin.
You think that goes the same for vocalists too?
Yeah,
like
definitely.
If they just stop singing or don't sing as much, like you really have to exercise your vocal cords then. Yeah, as a natural instrument, you can always tune a guitar, you can always tune a Steinway piano, but with your voice, that's something that you have control of. But if it is damaged, you start to have limited control, or if it's rusty,
where you stop for a while and don't keep practicing or expand or evolve your vocal cords, then yeah.
So most of these hardcore guys are just damaging their vocal cords, and
I
that's
don't
why
know how
they
they do it.
That dude, we were talking. I think were we talking about Bring Me the Horizon yesterday?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, the only reason they've had that long of a career is because Ollie decided it wasn't like time to stop throwing his vocals the way he was, because he could not do that for long.
I think aggressive singers to that caliber have some sort of training, or they do something.
I calloused vocal cords.
Yeah, I grew up I was like, I was really young. I was 11. Yeah, about 11 when I was in the Columbus music scene, and that's where like all the Rise Records bands were coming from. It was like, very hardcore. And I specifically remember some, screamers were getting like cysts on their voice.
That's what I'm saying.
And these are guys playing local shows, like, they have their day jobs during the week and then they play on the weekend. But like, they're like, oh, I can't scream anymore. So I honestly, that is like way above me. I don't know how they do that, but good for them, because that is a talent.
Yeah. But like I said, a lot of those bands don't last that long just because the vocalists can't, like, they have to switch out, like, of Mice and Men.
Oh, yeah.
They're on, like, their third vocalist. I'm pretty sure.
Are they really?
I'm pretty sure. I stopped listening to them in, like, 2014. I still heard all of their new albums, but I stopped following them back in 2014 or so. But
I think nowadays, too, a lot of... I kind of dropped out of it, so I'm not very educated on the hardcore scene today.
Right.
But I noticed a lot of bands are evolving to like melody more than screaming in a way.
They have to, because
times are changing, I think.
It's unfortunate to say, but I think hardcore music really is starting to die a little bit.
Which is sad.
Like, it'll be an underground scene for another 10, 15 years before it comes back up. But, like, for example, now we're seeing pop punk come back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Pop punk was super popular early 2000s, late 90s. And now that we're in 2020, that I've seen more new pop punk bands come up now than I have in the last 10 years.
Yeah, and it's crazy too, watching the reaction from obviously we're pretty young, but the younger demographic kind of coming out. We're listening to these new pop punk songs coming out. We're like, wow, this is like Newfound Glory. This is like 90s Green Day. Like it's very familiar and nostalgic to us, and it's funny and really great to watch the younger audience like really, really get into it. It's like, because we remember being those young kids too, and
going to shows and shit like that, like Wednesday night, and there's like 40 people there.
Before like Fall Out Boy or Taking Back Sunday were on like top 40 radio.
Right.
It was very, very, stuff coming out today is very familiar, and history is really repeating itself, and really, really quickly too, because I was like, what?
I feel like things really do go on like a 20 to 30 year cycle though. Mm-hmm. Like, from what I can recognize, like even 90s clothing is becoming a thing again. You start seeing those patterns and those colors popping back up. So it's like, I feel like it's a 20 to 30 year cycle. And more than likely, it's just because, like, the dude who was 15, who was into that shit in the 90s, is now 45 with a kid. Yeah. And his kid is learning from him, and he's, like, influencing his kid. So that's why shit starts coming back.
Oh, yeah, totally.
So it's it's weird to see when it starts coming back, but then you're like, oh, yeah, I guess this makes sense.
And is it just me, or do you think that, like, trends are changing so quickly?
Especially they are. Because everyone wants to be different. So because everyone wants to be different, people find the thing that's least accessible in that moment, but it becomes accessible quickly. Because as soon as a business sees that something's picking up, they're going to replicate it and start selling tons of it on their own anyways. Yeah. And then it just becomes mainstream, and then they have to find something else to become.
I also think that sometimes, especially people in my generation, I'll speak for myself, but we're not very patient to where it's like, all right, I'm bored with this fad.
Right.
I'm ready to move on.
Right. Few people kind of stick to like a solid style for very, very long.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
I guess you could say that's like a lack of identity for some people too. You know what I mean? They feel like their identity is rooted in being different from other people rather than finding something that they necessarily really like and just sticking with that. Yeah,
I think that does kind of compromise the identity. And it's really the same way with music too. If you're an established artist and you're all over the place, it's like,
right,
what's going on? Like we were talking about MGK's album and just how a long time ago, he was going to gradually do it. And he still has his identity. And because it was before, he was looking forward to, I assume, he was looking forward to evolving his sound to punk rock and wasn't just all over the place.
Right. I think that's the difference, though, is like, for example, with MGK and with Bring Me the Horizon and these different groups and bands that have been able to change their sound pretty drastically. Because, like, if you listen to MGK's Lace Up album, like his first album, that was like just straight rap. Like, on some heavy beats. Like, he was doing his thing.
Yeah.
And now he's making a pop punk album and Travis Barker is running the drums. Like, drastically different. But it was always really genuine to him. You know what I mean? If you followed his career, he's always been into pop punk and hardcore music and stuff like that. So it was still genuine to him, and I think that's why his followers and his fans aren't mad at him. Like, 2008. Lil Wayne comes out. I'm not sure if it was 2008. Don't quote me.
Like Prom Queen?
He comes out out with like a rock style hip hop song, playing the guitar and shit, and everyone's like freaking out and pissed off about it.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? But we don't live in that era anymore. Like, musicians, I feel like, have more room to experiment with different genres and not get chastised for it.
Yeah, I guess when I think about identity in the music world, I think it stems from being in a band really, really young.
Right.
You know, over time it was myself and my brother and two other guys, and we all just had such different music tastes. Right. To where we would just go all over the place on the genre spectrum, and it really caused us to lack a lot of identity, which I learned a lot with production and learning to understand the identity that people are going for, or artists are going for, that would align with their brand.
So maybe it's just like, it's more important early on in your career as a musician to like build a strong brand identity for like what kind of music you like, and then you can venture off.
I think there's a threshold.
Okay.
I think that there could be a time, you know, there could be, I mean, because, you know, you kind of grow into your own and understand who you are as an artist, and that takes different time for everybody.
Like, but, the business of music is very different from the craft of music.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But, you know, when there's a time where, you know, you're really going to go for it and you're really going to sell your artistry, I think that's the threshold where you really need to understand and stick to your identity, and most importantly, protect it and stand behind it.
Right. Right.
I hear countless times about some artists coming in and they're like, yeah, we just released a song last week, but we don't like it, but we want to still do this kind of, we want to finish this journey of songs with kind of the same sound and everything, but this
just
song,
to
we don't like it. But
just to like please the fans or like keep the fans and the label happy type thing.
Yeah, well, they don't want to identify themselves. They don't want to stand behind it. I don't know.
That's fair.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm like going too off or around
not at all,
circles, but I really just understanding and believing in what you did is really, really important, and that I think will spawn for a very direct and definitive identity versus just always being uncertain about everything you make and put out there.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Music has been really, really weird to be a fan of, especially if you're not just a fan of one genre. Yeah. Like, if you've been a fan of multiple different genres over the last 5 years, like, you've seen so many different developments in music and people doing things you never would have thought they would do. Yeah. So, I don't know. I'm curious to see where things are going to go over the next 5 years, because a lot of people you're seeing saying that, like, the EDM scene has kind of like hit a standstill at the moment. You don't really know how to break the threshold it's at. A lot of people saying hip hop is starting to decline. Really? So, like,
I think people, especially in hip hop, I notice people in that world kind of want to watch the mainstream fail. I'm not saying everybody, but it's like the second an artist who is a chart topping artist, second their album doesn't go to number one, it's like, oh, they're flopping, they're old news. It's like,
people have been critical of mainstream hip hop for a couple years now because it feels like the label is just pushing a bunch of bullshit artists that they know are going to, like, prime example is 6ix9ine. Right? Yeah. And his newest album flopped. He did, like, I think 47 or 50,000 copies first week, and he was saying that he was going to do 150K first week. So, exactly. So with all of his other songs having done hundreds of millions of views on YouTube for the videos and streams and all that different kind of stuff, makes you wonder, like, did everyone just get tired of it immediately and stop listening? Did the label get sick of dealing with him and stop pushing it? Like, what happened? You know what I mean? That's a weird situation.
I think I don't know much about 6ix9ine, but I think his story is a lot more unique than
as far as
like why his album flopped. Because there's a lot I believe you would probably know better than I would, but a lot of stuff that went on in the background before that album came out that probably caused a lot of.
It was him getting out of jail and all that stuff. So it's like, yeah, that could have played a big part, but it still begs the question. Someone who's getting hundreds of millions of streams and views, how do you drop to just like 40 or 50K sales in first week?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's just bizarre.
Point. Yeah.
So it makes you think about, like, at least me, it makes me think, what is the label, like, how much of a hand does the label actually have in making an artist big or not? You know what I mean? Especially with hip hop,
they're big bags
it might
of
be
money.
different.
They're big bags of money.
Yeah.
I think it depends on the label, obviously, but as far as I know and from my little experience with it, it's really just the platform and I call it a credit line because you know, those bonuses, you generally got to pay those back.
Right.
But
what they front you to make your stuff, you have to pay back to them.
You know, I really don't want to be this person like everybody else, but I really truly believe that I think that artists nowadays need a management and a team willing to look after them, but I don't think you really need a label. I think with Spotify and people having access to pushing their music through playlists and having, you know, a team behind them, that everyone has their own diverse job to, you know, whether it's pushing the playlists or you know, figuring out the rollouts or, you know, how are we going to perform this and promote it. I think all you need is just really a small team, and that's your collection of people that can make it happen, versus a label who is really just going to bring in their people sometimes and
to do the same things.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
And like, why, you know, my dad managed my band when I was younger, and it worked out in such a way to where, you know, we never got screwed over,
right?
Because we had just a close knit of a small little team bringing us around. And with a label, you don't. They're strangers. They're big corporations.
You don't know if they have ulterior motives or what's going on in their heads.
And you know, this person managing you has like 8 other people they're managing that have a far higher revenue stream than you for them to keep their jobs. And so I at least I believe that. The short answer is I believe artists have resources to get whatever they want to get done.
Right.
And really, you can have the best team in the world, but you know, it really comes down to the music. That transaction is really between the artist and the public. People are either going to listen or they're not.
It seems like
a label's not going to change that.
Well, that's true. But it also seems like having an in-house team of people that you can really trust gets rid of a lot of the extra stress you might have.
Oh,
you know 100%. What I mean? So
you
free up a lot of headspace to focus on making good music, which would ultimately make you sell better.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I do believe you do need a team of people. I don't think that, especially with an artist honing in their craft and creating their craft with, you know, a producer. You know, a producer is part of the team.
Right.
You know, you definitely need a team of people to oversee.
Right.
But I don't think quite a corporate label.
Need that. Not anymore, at least. Yeah. Not in today's day and age.
It's incredible what people can do. Like, you can promote your music to anybody in the world.
Especially, like, it really doesn't take that long to learn how to do, like, Facebook or Google ads on your own and, like, run them fairly well. You might not know all the nuances, but you can still put something out. So, like, the real up-and-coming artist who's doing it all by themselves and just has, like, a close homie that's managing them who doesn't really know what they're doing either, you can figure it out. You can make it work.
Totally. Like, for the song that I produced with Tidy, his graphic artist was out of town, and we needed the graphics because it's going to be released later this year. And just immediately I was like, how about I just create it real quick? I didn't even know I could do graphics, but the point is that somebody on your team is going to know somebody or know how to do something. Yeah. Just everybody just has access to all these resources to where you really can get whatever you need done.
And it feels like everyone's a Swiss Army knife nowadays. You know what I mean?
Totally.
They all have like multiple skills, and then once they find out where they're needed, that's the skill they're going to try to
totally
learn how to do best.
Yeah, like
At least there's plenty of people in my network like that. In the business world, there's a lot of people who are Swiss Army knives, and like they're just waiting for an opportunity where one of those things is going to be applicable. You know? What I mean?
Yeah, totally. Like Bella is a phenomenal singer, but she's also a great lyricist and songwriter.
Right.
But she's also a whiz at social media.
I didn't know that.
No,
did not know
incredible. And I am not a whiz at social media. So. But yeah,
like visually good at social media, or good at like social media just strategically.
Just creating a presence and utilizing. I am not a social media whiz, but like utilizing hashtags.
You're like, that's not my
getting
thing.
the right people to see her stuff. Credit to her team as well.
Right.
But and that's the whole team. They're all Swiss Army knives. They know everything.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Even the guys who set up the live stream and did all this, I was way over my head. I can film a podcast, do the audio, do the post-production, make all of the graphics for it. When it comes to this stuff, I was like, whoosh.
Her manager can teach me how to create content, but also teach me how to meditate.
Yeah, right. I mean, you all know Jason. Jason was the first podcast episode.
He's
the very first one. We need an update with him for sure.
I love that.
Lots
guy.
changed in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I don't know where he is. So
He's in the kitchen.
Oh, well, I say it truly that. Yeah.
Is he already drinking? Is Jason already drinking?
No.
We were having breakfast this morning, and we were having breakfast this morning, and Jason was like, "Yeah, so I'm writing a book," and we were like, "Yep, of course you are."
He's writing. So you're writing your book of quotes.
Quotes.
Right.
Quotes to live by.
How many pages are you in?
About 60 pages in.
See?
Yeah,
We're
we're talking about human Swiss Army knives.
Yeah, you are a human Swiss Army knife.
If you said tomorrow I'm going to be a film director and a skydiving instructor, you'd be like, as you should be.
For film as is.
That's true. That's true. So we're going to wrap this one up.
Sure.
I want to give you the floor. There's obviously 3 cameras. So pick one and let them know what's going on in your life, what you're going to be doing here in the near future,
Cool.
and then what they can look forward to in the far future.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we have, myself and a team of people have several songs coming out. You can follow me on, my tag is Halen, HALENBOU. Myself and my other artists will be promoting them when they come out. Not a whole lot we can talk about right now, but I'll stay up to date as possible. And thank you so much.
Guys, that was Halen.
Thank you.
You guys for checking out this episode. We're going to find you guys in the next one. I believe it's with Bella is next. So we'll have Bella on next, and then have fun. Peace out, bro.